Today's episode comes to you from the Blue Chew Studio. Right now, when you buy 2 months of Blue Chew Gold, you get the third for free with the promo code MyWorld at BlueChew.com. Hey, it's Conrad the Mortgage Guy, and you're listening to My World. And of course, we couldn't do it without the Hall of Famer, the greatest professional wrestler of all time, your friend and mine, Double J, Jeff Jarrett. Jeff, how are you, man?
Gandhi, we just starting hot here. I have no idea what's going on this morning. You and Silva, of all podcasts, to not be recording, we should have been dipped in about 10 minutes ago. You, My World listeners, I have no idea what we're in for today. I'm running a little late, but we're here. Connie, I have gotten feedback. I wanted to mention this right off the top as I was leaving the gym. I'm wondering what old Connie wants to talk about today. And I have gotten multiple texts. I'm going to give old Brian Myers a shout out. We had a healthy exchange. It's fun just talking about the industry and what we've been talking about here on the pod and how things have changed and all kinds of good stuff like that. So I hope you're well today. My World recording day. I have no idea what we're going to get into today. I really don't. We used to say, what's the topic? And we'll tease a little bit and get into the nitty gritty and the story about the story. Connie, what's on your mind today, pal? Happy belated. Did you have a good Mother's Day weekend?
I had a great Mother's Day. How about you motherfucker? Did you have a good Mother's Day?
Oh, boy. See, guys, somebody's froggy today.
I'm not froggy at all. I am excited to talk about real sports. Of course, we got lots of wrestling to talk about. I know you're a basketball junkie, and we record on Mondays. I know this show drops on Tuesday, but later tonight, the Pistons are going to play the Cavaliers, and the Thunder are going to look to close out the Lakers. If you had a chance to sort of throw it in the old predictor machine over there, what would you guess are going to be our NBA Finals this season, Jeff? I know you keep closer watch to this than I do.
Did you see, and I don't know, right now we're not framed. I don't know if that's an issue here, Silva, you're pulling in and out, but for our YouTube listeners. But anyhow, NBA, good Lord, Conrad, the Knicks are on a roll, 7 consecutive. I don't care. I just don't see them not. I can't believe the words are coming out of my mouth because, yes, I'm a basketball junkie. But the Knicks on the other side, it's Pistons and Cavs. I just don't see either team being able to. So I'm going to put the Knicks from the East, and in the West, I don't know if you probably didn't, but the highlights yesterday. Big man, Wembanyama. I never can say his last name right.
Just call him Wemby. That'll work.
Wemby threw an elbow. He gave him his walking papers for the game. He went on to the early showers, but that was kind of a statement. That series is up 2-2. So as we're recording this, I still believe Oklahoma City is just, they're too tough. They're long and even longer and super athletic. So I'm going to go Oklahoma City from the West, Knicks from the East, and it will be a ratings bonanza because when New York gets in there and they've got some, I'm going to go the Knicks in 7.
Wow, what a prediction. Man, they looked absolutely dominant in their most recent performance. I do want to ask, though, because it's kind of neck and neck with Silva's team, the Spurs and the Timberwolves. What do you think there? I know you think ultimately whoever it is going to get dog walked by Thunder. I got that. But specifically, the Timberwolves and the Spurs, it's been a really fun series to watch. If you had to call it, who do you think comes out on top?
I'm talking basketball. I'm happier to pick and shit. I wish I'd have been even more prepared. This is just off the top. But San Antonio, I think we are seeing the really coming of age of San Antonio. It's amazing. David Robertson, Tim Duncan, God almighty, they've had good player after good player. It's like a generation after a generation for freaking 30 years. San Antonio in 7. They're going to be really hard to beat. I think their machine is going to pan out here. Minnesota, though, if you watched that game yesterday, look, and with Wemby going to the bench, you thought it was just a game set match, but San Antonio hung around. Minnesota is lucky that it's 2-2. I think really lucky. So their luck runs out. 7.
I got to tell you, I'm looking forward to seeing the Spurs and the Thunder more than a lot of other matchups in the playoffs. That to me feels like that could be a championship game. That is until we just saw the Knicks just absolutely steamroll in this last round. But yeah, here you go, Double J calling it. Knicks and 7 at the end. Who do you guys think is going to wind up getting the dub? Jeff, I do want to ask you, this is sort of wrestling adjacent. It's not really involving wrestling, but I do think sometimes we see interactions like this. The NBA had some headlines over the weekend, we'll say. Draymond Green was in studio and had a little back and forth discourse with Charles Barkley. And Barkley was basically, in his opinion, calling a spade as an analyst and saying, hey, old teams don't win. You get older, you slow down. Sports is a young man's game. It's not the Warriors' time anymore. Draymond took that personally and made a reference to Charles Barkley in a Rockets uniform. Dan Patrick and a lot of others came to Charles Barkley's defense. And I thought to myself, this feels like a pro wrestling discussion. It's all subjective. What do you think of the Draymond Green, Charles Barkley discourse?
Yeah, I missed it. Mother's Duty and Codes was at the ballpark. We had games. Cats got us a dub, a huge win over the Oregon Lightning. We had a hell of a full house there in Clarksville F&M Bank Arena. So I missed this chit chat. So is the basic chit chat from the point counterpoint that old teams cannot win in the NBA?
I think Draymond took it personally that Charles Barkley was saying, hey, the Warriors' time has passed, and he wanted to defend his team and pop off a little bit. And he made some sort of pointed personal comment to Charles about, hey, we're all trying to not look like you in that Rockets uniform.
Ooh, okay.
And Dan Patrick correctly pointed out the worst Charles ever looked in a season in a Rockets uniform, and those stats are still better than Draymond's. So I don't think Draymond is necessarily assimilating well to being a talking head and a pundit while he's playing the game and also trying to maybe transition to being a broadcaster. But over the weekend, he was even on the roast of Kevin Hart, and Shane Gillis said that he is responsible for 4 championship rings the same way that Ringo Starr is responsible for 11 number 1 albums. Just hilarious stuff. Thought maybe you'd have an opinion.
Oh, I'd love to see it, but here's because again, into the basketball junkie deal, the Klay Thompson, it would take him out of that whole equation, and he did get his game did slow down. Everybody forgets, probably Draymond at the top of the list. It takes a full blown team, and Draymond, my man, I was going to give him the compare to maybe a Bill Winnington. Go straight up basketball analogy, but I like the Ringo Starr. Draymond, I do not. There's a reason that Charles, that whole panel, Conrad, Shaq, and Charles, I think why they've lasted so long. And look, Ernie, and the mix is great, but Draymond will never be considered, no matter what, one of the all-time greats. And I think that's why Charles and Shaq can get away, because they just have the status and the stature, and bless Draymond's heart, but he'll have a couple of year run as a broadcaster, and then I think he'll be out the door. His newness will wear off.
I think they're trying to have fun. They're trying to make something that can be awfully boring at times fun. You get towards the dregs of the regular season, and it looks like there's no incentive for these teams to actually play at their best or win the doggone game, Jeff. So Lord bless them. They got their work cut out for us. And hey, you've had your work cut out for you. Arena football, the NashvilleCats.com is where you can go pick up the tickets. But you just mentioned you had a full house over the weekend. What do you got coming up in the coming weeks and days with Cats football?
Yes, Saturday is going to be our biggest. We got our Vice game of the week. It's going to be huge. But the biggest thing that I'm, as a football fan, Tennessee Titan fan, Dr. Dyson, Derek Mason, and Dr. Kevin Dyson. But folks, Kevin Dyson was part of the Music City Miracle back in January of 2000. But every week, Conrad, we have what we call a Cats captain who doors open at 3, and the Cats captain signs autographs for about 30 minutes. And it has really been an overwhelming success. So we've got both of those guys up, obviously former players of Coach Fisher. And so we got Cats captains. We are finalizing who's going to be the game ball presenter, but Vice Game of the Week. It's going to be a big one, Conrad. I was a few minutes late to this. We were kind of finalizing some different things on statistics on social media, but there was a play last week from the Kentucky Barrels that got on Sports Center, and it's one of those tens of millions of views. And we had an Albany play, but our social media, and I'm trying to behind it all, trying to help gear all that. But it's really cool. Cats super successful this past weekend, Mother's Day weekend. Very hard weekend, as you are aware. Sometimes mom says, no, I'll pass on the arena game. Y'all got to make my day or my weekend. But we did very well. We were actually up from 2 weeks ago. So 3 home games in. Pretty cool. Got 4 to go. And so we're looking for our biggest weekend yet coming up. This Saturday, Vice Game of the Week.
Yeah, you can actually grab your tickets now at NashvilleCats.com. And of course, you can watch the game on Vice. It goes down this Saturday at 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Central. Yes, you can watch Jeff's football team on Vice TV this Saturday night. Jeff, we got a lot of wrestling to talk about, like a ton of wrestling stuff and some really granular stuff, including some big news that had the entire internet talking last week. But I thought we'd go a little retro today and kick it old school. It's hard to believe, but on this day in Double J history, way back when, in the year 1987,
oh gosh,
just like a month and change removed from WrestleMania 3, you were in the ring in the Mid-South Coliseum against Moondog Spot and became the new NWA Mid-America Heavyweight Champion in 87. Talk to us about this magical moment in your career. Still a young whippersnapper, cutting your teeth, getting going, been in the biz about a year. And now here you are working with a Moondog for a strap, by God.
So, man, Connie, you are on it, my man. I could talk about, it's funny. I just got an email. There's a wrestling journalist that wants to do a kind of a story on Larry Latham. And if you go kind of back in time, and I'll tell you the story, kind of, I don't know how long you want to spend on this, but I'll tell you, it was kind of a cool story. That Mid-America title, I know Jeremiah Plunkett, as of recently in the NWA, they have kept that one of their mainstays. But back in the day, you have to remember that I have, as a fan, Larry Latham and Wayne Ferris, the Blonde Bombers, were part of the original concession stand brawl. And in my opinion, a lot of things that got famous, but that is, and a lot, I can't call it the birth of hardcore, but man, oh man, it's in the early stages. But Larry Latham was a part of that. And then the Blonde Bombers, when I was, 11 or 12 years old, definitely not smart to the business, go out to the matches in Nashville. And Danny Davis, Nightmare Danny Davis, had this riding crop, and they would whip the hell out of my dad right in front of me, just screwing with me. I think got some PTSD from that. But anyway, so I was scared to death of Larry at that point. And then when I broke in, got going, and he came back through the territory, and he was the Mid-America champion. And him and my dad got together because they'd gone back years. And he said, "What, Jerry, why don't we kind of surprise him and flip the title to him?" And I'm like, anyway, so Larry called, obviously everything, but I just thought it was kind of a cool deal. So April of, so God almighty, May of 87. So I'd been wrestling just over a year. That's right. Gosh, Conrad, that's pretty cool. But no, it was a special deal. And then, it wasn't 4 years later, the Moondog Feud of the Year, as our Uncle Dave Meltzer called it back in the day. But me and Lawler against the Moondog. So me and Larry worked together so many different times. But you talk about a guy, and this is what that interview is probably going to get into, who really knew how to work his character. The Moondog, he had the look and the bone, and everybody remembers, if you're a Memphis wrestling fan, that video package they did. My dad took Larry and his partner, I'm trying to think it was at the time, but out in the back in a little old swamp pond, and it looked like he was in the swamps of Louisiana. But anyway, that's pretty cool you brought that up. So damn, Conrad, 39 years ago this week or today.
Larry Lathan was Moondog Spot, and you mentioned Wayne Ferris earlier. Tell everybody, because I think when people talk about the Tupelo concession stand brawl, they sort of gloss over who all was in that went on to be something else later in life. There's two names that I think people often just sort of gloss over.
Jerry Lawler and Bill Dundee were taking on Wayne Ferris and Larry Latham. Larry Latham obviously had his Moondog run and WWF and all. He had that character down better than anybody. But his partner was Jerry Lawler's first cousin, also known as the Honky Tonk Man. And when you really, in hindsight, becomes clearer and clearer and clearer on kind of the importance and how that was. But they needed to wake Tupelo up. Tupelo, Mississippi was a weekly town, and the territory was down all over. And Lawler would tell the story, and my dad would tell the story. And there's different kind of shades of it. I don't say different versions, but different shades of it. And they needed something to a real shot in adrenaline. And so they did the non-finish or finish, whatever, in the ring, but they kept fighting afterwards, and a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. And then they just kind of all hell broke loose. And I think the beauty of that whole thing was kind of kickstarted by Lance Russell's subtlety that he, there's a camera job and he's got it, and they were, I'll call it on the hard camera. And then, so the hard camera's up in the loft, but as it went along, my dad, producing it, and said, all right, we're going to cut the dark. Lance, and I've heard the different deals, but Lance and my dad, and obviously Lawler would have been a part of that, is that let's act like we're going to give him a look, something extra that wasn't supposed to happen. And Lance's narrative, hey, Randy, caution to the cameraman, let's keep this camera rolling, or Mike Shields or whoever it was, all this. And they walk down the steps, and they're shooting it from the most, in today's world, you would get so annihilated online. That was the worst production. It was shot horrible. You can't see this, you can't see that. And correct across the board, but kind of designed that the viewer thought, especially in those days, man, we're getting to see the real behind the scenes. They're knocking the shit out of each other, and they're bleeding, and there's mustard and ketchup in the concession stand, and mops and brooms, and you're trying to fight literally slick as glass on that concrete floor that had drinks and mustard and all that kind of stuff. But it was a very well done angle, if you will, that shot the territory up. But people, to me, the people that know history in wrestling, you can almost trace that back to, okay, that was done differently. It was presented well. It created big box office, and it was kind of a seed that different people. I was having a conversation at the gym. I know I'm kind of segueing here about Paul Heyman, about his success in the bloodline with Roman, with Brock, with Punk, that goes back. And I think a lot of people forget, young Paul Heyman was a photographer, but he also, the first territory that he really came to, his real mentors were three guys: Jerry Lawler, Tommy Rich, and Austin Idol. And if you see a Heyman promo to this day, you can't tell me that there isn't a little bit of each one of them in his promos. So anyway, but that was Larry Latham, Wayne Ferris, Lawler, Dundee. It was a hell of an angle. And back then, the real metric was, did that put butts in seats? And it did.
Were you an active fan at the time? Like, I know that, every kid is probably really focused on, sports. But in '79, when the concession stand brawl is happening, are you keeping up with wrestling? Is it can't miss programming for you? Like, I know your dad's doing it. I know you're around it, but is it appointment TV for you at that point?
Here's where, and this, when I look back on it, in that, for the most part, if you were a wrestling fan starting in, I don't know, when it went national, Conrad, I guess is where I'm trying to go with it, TBS, and then when it came on USA, you really just had to have cable. Conrad, so Memphis was always our mainstay market out of the territory, and Louisville and Evansville. and we stayed on WMC in Memphis, Wave TV in Louisville. I forget the call letters of Evansville, but in Nashville, it was a unique market in that ABC, WNG TV, we shot TV there. But remember, it was a town that in the original split between my dad and Nick Goulas, Nick took the South End, which was Chattanooga, Nashville, and Birmingham. And my dad, I know Memphis in the North End, but he took Memphis, Louisville, and Evansville and all the spot shows that way. So Nashville was the gray area, although it was his hometown. And so we went from a V station to a U station back to a V station. So there were times when TV, there was, I can remember my mom would not let me stay up and watch it because it was on at 10:30 at night. And I got to stay up one time and watch it at 10:30 on Saturday night. The only reason was I got to go to the TV taping with my dad, and I wanted to watch me and my brother on TV. Bobby Eaton was in that show. Phil Hickerson, Crazy Luke Graham. Anyway, I can just still remember the vivid memories of a TV taping. But no, so Conrad, the concession stand brawl, to answer your question, that was kind of a time frame where it screwed up, but also, it was, I'm 10, 11, 12. I really got bit by that travel basketball bug and playing ball all the time. You know what, an 11, 12-year-old kid. But I watched it. That's when I think I transitioned from, it was summertime. I never missed it. But during school year in Nashville, it was spotty.
So let's fast forward to why I bring this topic up. This happened. You win this title off Moondog Spot in 1987. On this day, 1987. When do you find out? Like in that era, do you find out you're getting the belt the day before, the night before, the day of, a week out, a month out? Like how far in advance did you know what was going on?
Yeah. So in that, I think they talked at TV. Again, 87, it's Lawler. Well, it always really was that, but I'm saying, for the most part, and I don't even know what that full card was, but it was probably Lawler and others. And here's what I don't really recall is Larry and my father had a really good relationship. Larry liked me, but with the green light, Larry, let me see if I can explain this right. Because Phil Hickerson, we used to joke about this under a few cold ones. The fact that, because me and Phil became buddies, but Phil and my father had a relationship. But because those guys had a really good relationship with my father, even though he's the promoter and the boys, but Phil lived in Jackson and Larry, he ended up really living in Memphis, but he had traveled around, but he had been in and out. But for the most part, these were guys, this was kind of their home territory. So, but with that being said, them accepting me also knew that they got the green light to lay it in and teach me the right way. And sometimes that wasn't always the fun way. And so I don't really know when my dad and Larry came up with, okay, let's switch the title to Jeff, and that'll kind of help him, knowing that Larry's probably going to screw me back with it with the bone in 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever it may be. So, but I remember, I obviously wasn't told ahead of time, but told that day. And that night I was just like, damn, that was really my first singles title, if I remember correctly. That it was, but I think more than anything, because it was Larry. Larry was again, main eventer. He just was, when you think about the tag teams, remember out of the early 80s, the Sheep Herders, the Fabs, the Rock and Roll. But then Norvell and Coco and Lawler and Dundee were a tag team in and out, but not quote unquote bookend tag teams. There were so many tags that had come through the early 80s, and I always put Larry in that category. Blonde Bombers were main eventers, and then obviously the Moondogs. I don't know exactly what year they went to WWF, but anyway, I was told that day, Conrad.
May 11th, 1987, Double J holds the belt for 2 weeks and drops it back to Moondog Spot in Memphis on TV. Wins it back at a live event a week later. So you would actually wind up holding this title 5 times by the end of the year. So you win the belt in May, and then flip flop it several times. But that was a different business model. You know, we weren't as much into licensing fees and merchandise fees and television rights. It was about, how do I convince these people to come see this same group of wrestlers in this same building this time next week? So as a result, a lot of flip flopping of the titles here. But I love this story though. That's your first singles title, and here we are all these years later talking about picture money, Jeff.
Well, I was going to say, I chuckle at sometimes that I think of different, you know, I had a routine on, you know, you go to the picture table, you've got to change up merch. You can't, the same fan is not going to buy the same picture.
That's right.
You got a new selection every week, which I always made sure I never, in that run, maybe not year one, but by year two, Conrad, I had learned my lesson off of real numbers. No doubt, real numbers. Like, okay, I didn't have anything new. So always would have one or two new poses at the picture table. But the Polaroid and, buddy, the instant Polaroid and, you know, whatever story it may be, and we've chuckled about it, especially since doing the podcast, but it is one of those things, Conrad, but it's so ingrained in me that I forget sometimes, and especially, well, this generation could care less about it, but the mindset of going to the arena, making sure you have, you know, it's what am I going to do bell to bell? It's not about a meet and greet. It's not about picture. It's not about this. It's not about that. It's really not even about ratings. It's not to be, you know, that you got guaranteed contracts. I'm not complaining. I'm just kind of think on things, how things have evolved, and things have really changed through the years. But my mind, you know, when I left the house, okay, and, you know, and it's no joke, I could pick up my wrestling back in those days and know if I'd forgot something. That's not because of the weight of it. I was regimented. I knew all that, but you never went to the picture table without new photos. You never went there without enough Polaroid film. Don't run out. As Frank Morrell used to say, hey, dumbass, that picture, those Polaroids don't go bad. Buy more. Cause I'd go into whatever store it was and buy 3 or 4. And he goes, how many they have in there? He said, just buy everything they got. That shit don't go bad. I'm like, okay, Frank. But anyway, going through all that and the photos and all that kind of stuff. But Connie, you get that Mid-America title, you stand there doing Polaroid photos, man, you learn real quick. Hey, bud, and especially if it's a guy, they don't want their picture with Jeff, but put that belt on their shoulder. Okay, sure. Mid-America title, there's more than a few ways to make money for that, so.
Well, it was on Jeff's old to-do list, right? You had to have different photos. You had to have different programs. You had to have a Polaroid camera. But things have changed. Now Jeff makes sure he's got Square. Yep. Support for today's episode comes from Square. This is the business platform that helps sellers become neighborhood favorites. Whether you're gearing up for a busy season or just trying to keep up with everyday demand, Square keeps your business running smoothly. From payments and POS to online orders, inventory, staff, and more, all in one place so you can focus on your customers and not your to-do list. Are you ready to grow or streamline how you run things? Well, Square is offering listeners up to $200 off their Square hardware when you sign up right now at square.com/go/myworld. Again, that's SQUARE.com/go/myworld. Start with Square and build a setup that grows with your business. And I'm going to tell you, if you've been going to a lot of different conventions, I was at a convention over the weekend, nearly every single performer who's on this autograph circuit, they're all using Square. And it's because they figured out this is the fastest, easiest way to really scale and grow your business. You can go ahead and count on Square to bring payments, point of sale, inventory, staffing, and online sales together in one system. So you as the business owner, you don't have to juggle a bunch of different tools. Square can take care of it all. Their hardware and their software is designed to be easy to use, so day-to-day operations feel simpler. I also want to brag on Square's AI-powered tools. They're going to help you automate some more routine tasks, and that gives you more time back so you can focus on, while you're there, making sales. You can sell online, in store. You can do both. You can even customize your setup as your business evolves. I think Square AI is going to streamline these complex and time consuming tasks behind the scenes. It's a real game changer. Think of Square as almost like an advocate in your corner. They're going to work side along you to help solve those problems. They want to share those insights. They want to make sure they're keeping you one step ahead. Square now also has 3 different clear plans. You've got a free plan, a plus plan, and a premium plan. So you pick the tools that you need and you can grow into more when you're ready. Here's a little pro tip for you. Sellers who are using Square software are seeing 9% higher sales on average. Can't beat that. There's no hidden fees. There's no locked in contracts. There's no upcharges for premium cards or empty promises either. But maybe best of all, there's no surprise costs. Square is going to help you run your business more smoothly, bringing payments, operations, and insights into one place so you're ready for whatever's next. And right now, our listeners can get up to $200 off your Square hardware when you sign up at square.com/go/myworld. That's SQUARE.com/go/myworld. Get started with Square and build a setup that works the way you do.
Connie, I had no idea that Square's on board right now. That may be the greatest segue of all time. I will do a testimonial because nowadays when we go to the picture table, you know, I guess I can mention PayPal, blah, blah, blah. But man, if you have that Square reader, you put a smile on folks' eyes. I mean, put a smile on people's face, and it certainly puts a smile on my face as well. It is unbelievable technology. So
check out Square. Go do it, man. Square.com/go/myworld. Get your hookup, man. If all the boys are doing it, you know it's legit.
That's right.
Hey, I pulled up this card from the day you won the title. You said, hey, I wonder who else was on that card.
Yeah.
JT Southern versus the Hunter was the opening match. The Rising Suns, that's Mr. Hilo and Mr. Shima, beat the Downtown Connection. That's Big Bubba and Goliath. We saw Downtown Bruno pick up a win over Tojo Yamamoto by DQ. Jack Hart was in there and picking up a win over Alan West. And that is around the same time that Double J strutted to the ring to pick up a win over Moondog Spot and become the new Mid-America Heavyweight Champion. The CWA International Tag Team match was Billy Travis and Mark Starr against Bad Company. That's Pat Tanaka and Paul Diamond. But the main event that night was Austin Idol teaming with Tommy Rich to take on Bill Dundee and Rocky Johnson, The Rock's dad, in the main event here when you win your first singles title. How about that little time capsule card?
And this is the time that Dwayne Johnson went to McGavick High School. I'm remembering he doesn't have the most fond memories as a family unit. Those weren't their red letter days. Tough time, very tough time, but made him into who he is today. A name you threw out there, which Jack Hart, which you just kind of glossed over. Do you know who Stretcher Jack Hart is? None other.
Barry Horowitz, right?
Barry Horowitz, attaboy. So yeah.
And Big Bubba on the Downtown Connection. Do you know who that is?
Oh, of course. Tugboat.
That's Tugboat. That's right. So there's a lot of fun names in here that you go ahead.
Sorry. People still may not be Tugboats. People predominant, but he's most famously known for Davy Boy Smith.
Shockmaster.
Shockmaster. That's what I'm saying. Shockmaster. And then Conrad, here's you said it's Rocky and
Bill Dundee against Idol and Rich.
Okay. Does it not say Paul Heyman?
He wasn't wrestling on this card. He may have been in a managerial role. I have the match results from cagematch.net.
Okay, but I think during this era, what is that from Memphis, Tennessee?
Mid-South Coliseum, 1987 today. If you
wanted to do a deep dive, we could figure out, because I don't know if this is after Lawler lost his hair and because Lawler was out because they did the nut shot and all the cage match and all that, but they had the heat on the heels and they needed partners for Dundee.
It's a week later. He lost his hair April 27th. So about 2 weeks later.
They needed, yeah. So Lawler couldn't come back because he's having his vasectomy, I think. This is the story behind the story. Lawler couldn't come back, but they had a ton of heat on Idol and Rich. and maybe Paul was also hurt storyline purposes, or maybe he had already finished. I don't know, but it's funny. We're talking about all that, and I brought up Paul not knowing, but yes, there you have it. Memphis, the weekly episodic nature of the business back then.
You mentioned the Polaroids. I got to ask, who was more tickled with the creation of the instant camera? Pro wrestlers or perverts?
Oh,
It's got to be a coin toss, right?
you always come with the hard hitting. I didn't see that question coming, but I would
50-50, really.
Hey, I'm going to do my best, Conrad Thompson. Leave your comment right here. Tell us what you.
I'm just saying, did anybody make more use of it than Jerry Lawler? You know, Jerry Lawler had to have so much picture money and then probably quite a collection of Polaroids, if I had to guess.
Stop it.
You don't think?
I know for a fact. Are you looking at me in the eye? I'm going to look straight in the eye. I know for a fact it was like pulling teeth to get Jerry Lawler to come to the picture table.
You telling me he didn't have a Polaroid collection at home?
I'm telling you, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that Lawler liked to stay in the dressing room and play cards and not go to the picture table.
Who had the most prolific? We've heard through the years that like Howard Finkel had a legendary porno collection.
I didn't. Serious? Bruce enlighten you to that?
Supposedly a connoisseur, thousands of titles.
I didn't know that.
That was a lot. It was a blind spot for me too.
I love
back in the day, did any of the guys that you recall keep like I don't know, maybe a picture album of memories? Because it feels like that was a common thing back then, I would imagine.
Conrad, if I did recall someone, but I think I'd tell them, hey, dumbass, why are you holding evidence here? But people do that. No, Connie, I can't think of that.
That's the real dark side of the ring I'm curious about. Picture money, Polaroid.
Can I ask you a question, Conrad?
Yes, sir.
Hypothetically speaking.
Yep.
Back in your early 20s.
Okay. 20 something years ago.
Yes. Every human being walking in their early 20s, especially males, it's scientifically proven that our brains are not completely formed. So if our brains are not complete, sometimes we make errors in judgment.
Oh yeah.
Errors in judgment. So I don't care how many party favors, how many Rocky Mountain cold spring waters, how late at night or early in the morning it may be, but I'm going to ask you, if you were to see a camera come out past midnight, would you make sure they got the right side of you, or would you go into a good red ass Connie and say, put that mother hunching camera up? Which side of the scales here do you fall? Smile for the camera, say cheese, or I'm going to beat the shit out of you if you don't put that camera up?
I know you're asking age-wise as just a general rule of thumb. I want to drill down even further. Are you asking this question before or after I've had any career success? Because if you're asking before, dumb old country boy ain't got nothing to lose. Don't even think about it. Like, hey, we're just goofing off with our friends and being idiots.
Okay.
Fast forward, and you're like, Lord, whatever I'm doing right now is probably, I don't want it to be filmed. I'm in a less than state. And there may or may not have been someone who was tackled into a pool at my Huntsville home once because they had broken out a camera and they were walking around like this, just like casually. And I realized what's going on. And I realized he's filming people who are consuming some adult beverages and maybe enjoying themselves, but knowing they don't have to look for a ride. They can just sleep it off here. And he may or may not have gotten a new phone delivered the next day because his got water damage.
Buddy, accidents happen.
It does. Happens all the time.
Happens all the time. Yes.
It's no accident, though, that the entire internet was talking about the new season of Dark Side of the Ring.
Boy.
And who better to be the cover art for the new season than JEFF, JARRETT? Variety broke the news last week, and what a photo they used. You coming up the ramp there at the impact zone. Just an iconic, classic look. I absolutely love this shot. And I'm surprised to hear, I can't believe this is real. Is this 3 episodes?
Buddy.
Like the story of TNA and Jeff Jarrett. Do I have I read this right? It's not 1 episode. It's not 2 episodes. It's 3 freaking episodes, Jeff.
And you know what? Obviously, there's with Vice and Evan Husney and the entire Dark Side of the Ring crew and producers and just my man Stu, who has done countless interviews on the roads, season after season. Conrad, I just know peripheral that it started as 1 episode, and who knows? Maybe because I can talk, I get long-winded. No, I don't know. That's a total joke. But it went for you. You are correct. It went from 1 episode, 1 hour, to 2 to 3, and I just, it's Conrad, and this is another blind spot. And me and you, we haven't really talked a lot in the last week since it came out. Tex, of course. I know you've been mortgage business and beach business and all kind of stuff like that. But and maybe a part of the blind spot is that like a lot of folks are like, now why is there 3 episodes? Maybe a little negative. There are lots of positive, but also just kind of the feedback. And then I had to kind of take a step back and really look at. I think this is the 7th season.
Yep.
And and I've watched not every episode, but I've watched enough. I think I've been involved in a couple, and the Tales of the Territory done by the same group, which is near and dear to my heart. For me to get the opportunity to be on camera with my dad and Lawler and Dutch Mantell and Jimmy Hart. Oh man, that was to this day one of the most special pieces of memory I had, because I got to be a moderator on what really turned me into a fan as a kid. That being said, when they reached out, Conrad, you know bits and pieces of it, and the Dark Side of the Ring, for the most part, the endings aren't all that. I don't know. Help me out. Don't turn out. I guess you could say positive.
They don't have happy endings, Jeff.
Happy endings. Okay. So happy, maybe that's the right word. I was going to use positive. But when they approached me, I had to think through it. And then I'm thinking, my God, what a freaking opportunity, because there have been some highs and lows of not just my career, but TNA's career as well. What a unique set of circumstances, and kudos to them. If you really drill it right down to it, Evan Husney just kind of having, I'll call it the vision,
Yes.
and not well received on some folks, maybe internal and external of the business. At the end of the day, I've got, I don't know how many times prior to this, them making the Variety release and all this, prior to this, I don't know how many times people have come up to me and said, my God, I watched that episode of Fill in the Blank. Man, you guys, it's just a whole different world of business. And I'm like, that's what people don't really understand. And, Evans made, like I said, now he's on the 7th season on looking at it. And yes, sometimes it really paints not the prettiest picture. But for me to get the opportunity to be a part of a story that there is, by the grace of God, an unbelievable happy ending. The alternative is death, because there's quite a few episodes that end in real tragedy. So I'd love to hear your feedback, Conrad, just kind of on all of it, because I think there's definitely a story that goes without saying. I had thoughts over the last week too that, my dad, to get his thoughts on it, because he was very aware of the highs and lows that venture that we started in '02 put a real rift between us in the worst kind of way, but we came through it as a father son and out the other end, and I hate to say lived to tell about it. So in a real positive deal. So I'm excited for it to come out. I think it's a real opportunity to kind of tell the story.
I'm excited to see it. It's going to kick off on July 7th at 9 p.m. Eastern. There's going to be 2 back-to-back episodes that air that first night. This is a 3-part special on Jeff Jarrett and TNA. I believe both of those first 2 episodes will air on July 7th
Oh, is that
at
right?
9 p.m. Eastern. I guess the following weeks we'll get Paul Orndorff, the Big Boss Man, Missy Hyatt, the Necro Butcher versus Samoa Joe at the ECW Arena. I was in the building for that one.
Oh, wow.
Zach Gowen and Rick Wilson, who we knew as the Renegade in WCW. Oftentimes Dark Side of the Ring does get painted with a pretty wide brush, and people are quick to say that, oh, it's negative and it shines a light on the worst parts of the business and it's bad for the industry. And I disagree with all of that. I think one of the real strokes of genius that Evan has done, and everybody else involved, I don't know who we're supposed to specifically shout out or not, but you mentioned Evan, so I'll keep that same energy. I think one of the genius things they've done through the years, and Jeff, you and I watched a season in advance. Evan would occasionally send me screeners, and you and I happened to be together when I was getting some of those, and we watched several. I always appreciated that we talked to the wives and the kids, the people who weren't on the road, they're not in front of the camera, but they were the support system at home for these performers that we as fans feel like we sort of knew and grew up with. And of course, we're not able to hear from Jill, but I know that Karen was interviewed for this. And without even seeing it, I've seen not a second of footage. I bet Karen steals the show. I'm excited to see this, Jeff.
Oh, wow. Look at you. You know what? They interviewed my part here at the house, and when they asked Karen, I just got out of the way, the deal. But they interviewed her not here at the house. A studio, actually a recording studio over in South Nashville. That's one of the things that I learned back during the Bash at the Beach, kind of their process of how, like, the amount of time and the amount of people they interviewed for this is. I know Matt Hardy went public. The Hardys were interviewed. They have a story of redemption in multiple ways, and it's pretty cool. And that's people don't always associate. Just go all the way back to day one, close. For the Hardys when they were enhancement talent and then taking up to the next level and working with me and with Owen. Like, that's kind of where our story started. And then the TNA years. So they interviewed a lot of folks for all these episodes, because during breaks and coffee breaks and in the afternoons, Conrad, I don't know. Yeah, you've probably run into this. The airplanes that come over the house. But when you're really trying to be quiet, so we'd have to take a break. So, but just the amount of time and effort, and that's where I think the wrestling fan, and again, I love the tribalism. I love the wrestling audience online because they're vocal. They are part of what stirs the drink, contrary to, I think, what a lot of people think is that I just think there's nothing like 52 weeks a year of engagement of what we do in a unique kind of way that I know, Conrad, sometimes we scratch our head and go, wait a minute, folks, are you losing the plot here? That's exactly, anyway, that's a rabbit hole. But the dark side, what your point is, and I'm going a long way around to saying is, it gives the opportunity to really tell the story behind the story of human nature. And we're all humans coming into this business, and it's not easy. It's just, I think it shines. When you take a step back, that's what my buddy said. At the end of the day, love or hate professional wrestling, have no use for it or think it's great or anything in between. It is such a unique business, but it's a very tough business to be long-term successful in. And I will stand on that. I learned that from my grandmother way back. Son, it's a tough business. So if you decide to get in it, I want you to hear me out. Don't become a wrestler. You can wrestle, but don't become a wrestler. It's
I love that quote. It's fantastic. And I love Dark Side of the Ring. You know, I think your point is well made about, hey, a lot of times Dark Side of the Ring features a story with a tragic ending. Well, the Jeff Jarrett story, and for that matter, the TNA story, is a story of tragedy and triumph. Join them. Check it out. Episodes 1 and 2 of season 7 coming your way this July. Of course, as we get closer, we'll talk more about it. Probably have some reaction episodes. Make plans to join us. Hit that subscribe button. Turn on the notifications bell. Maybe we'll pin down Evan and some of the folks behind the scenes at Dark Side of the Ring. Go ahead, Jeff.
You know what's kind of ironic? I just mentioned earlier on the Cats game, and all fired up. The Vice game of the week. It's no coincidence, pal. Only convergences. Who would have thought I'd have been involved with the Cats kind of out of nowhere over the last 18 months, Coach Fisher and all this, so the Vice game of the week, and there will be a Vice game of the week when this premieres, and it's the Vice folks reaction. It's pretty cool. So I'm hoping there's a little crossover there. Yeah, it's I guess you could, I'll leave it at that. I won't say anymore, but it's no coincidences, pal, only convergences. And I'm happy for all involved, what you just said.
Let me just tell you, you're going to be happy for all involved when you get maybe the best late buzzer beater Mother's Day gift ever, or maybe you're going to be looking for dad. Let me just go ahead and put you up on game. Here's what everybody wants: better trips to the bathroom with Tushy. You want to talk about leveling things up? I don't know that there has been a level up in my household better than Tushy. What you're going to love is it's not something that you dread. I mean, I remember as a kid, I would hold it like it was, I don't want to go to the bathroom. Who wants to go to the bathroom? Now, this is something you actually look forward to. I had that nothing happening son of a gun Adam Priest in my house last week, and he took his lovely girl to go to a little birthday dinner here on Lake Gunnersville, and he said, "Hey man, are you at home?" And he stopped by, and I thought he just came to visit, Jeff. And this is a real story, but I found out he disappeared to the bathroom, and he was gone through one commercial break and then another commercial break.
Oh Lord.
And I started to say, "Hey man, you got one hung up in there?" And out he came strutting like he had just won the Mid-America title, like he had just went one-on-one with Moondog Spot. And he said, "Man, that heated seat, it gets all over me." Tushy Bidet is going to transform your bathroom wellness for life. Gut to butt to bowl. Soothe your bottom with instantly warm water that never runs cold. 99% of people who wash with Tushy warm water bidets feel cleaner and fresher after going to the bathroom. Tushy e-bidets instantly modernize your daily routine and bathroom with a heated seat. That's Adam Priest's favorite. Adjustable water temperature and a powerful yet gentle dryer. That's right, a dryer. Every Tushy bidet easily attaches to your existing toilet without the need for additional plumbing. E-bidets only require an outlet. Think of this as like daily decadence, but with practical benefits. Instead of endlessly wiping with toilet paper, Tushy pristinely removes 99% of bacteria while protecting your natural skin barrier thanks to one natural ingredient. Come on, fresh water. Installation is super easy, just about 10 minutes to get started. Literally anyone can do it. It's also easy to use. You sit, you cleanse, and then you dry using the built-in air dryer. Cleaning yourself after the bathroom is now hands-free. By the way, people who've made the switch to Tushy are up to 80% less toilet paper. Isn't that crazy? No more clogged toilets, no more wasting money on something that we know doesn't interfere your job cleaning your body. Every Hello Tushy bidet comes with a 30-day hassle-free return and a 12-month warranty. And if you're not Team Tushy, buddy, you're not Team Clean. For a limited time, our listeners can get 10% off their first bidet order when you use the code MyWorld at checkout. That's 10% off your first bidet order at hellotushy.com with the promo code MyWorld. Jeff, let's talk about the big news over the weekend. I think everybody and their brother was tweeting about AEW's pay-per-view or it wasn't even a pay-per-view. It was a free special on TBS, Fairway to Hell. This is one of the more interesting concepts we've seen in a while. I love when we have wrestling happening in almost like a fish out of water setting. I've said it for years here on the program. I love the ring over the pool at Club La Vila. I know I'm not alone in that. A lot of fans dig that. I know once upon a time, WCW put a doggone ring on the beach in California for Bash at the Beach. Maybe we didn't love the biker concept, Hog Wild and Road Wild, but it was different then. And I like when something is different then. And boy, the photos from Fairway to Hell are out of this world. What'd you think, Jeff?
Well, you stole the headline, because I remember seeing for the very first time Club La Vila, the spring break Nitro, and just, I'll call it kind of the aura or vibe, if you will, of the program. It just set it apart. And I think the swings that you have to take, pardon the pun, you're not always going to hit it out of the park. That just comes with the territory, period. That it's not going to be for everybody. But professional wrestling in and of itself is a spectacle. And for the most part, and this is why I think studio wrestling, if you go back and watch Memphis, Tennessee wrestling, Conrad, in the heyday when it was selling out every arena, and I know it's different times, but they'd have 150, 180 people in that studio screaming and going crazy. But it gave the coming through the little bitty TV speakers in those days, it felt good. It felt cool. It felt it just a good vibe. Same with studio. You can get into, big arenas and not have as good of aura with if you shoot it right. And again, audio's big, but the spectacle of this show, I think, just jumped off the page, that you knew, okay, I'm not going to get to watch this every week. I'm going to stay tuned. So regardless of numbers, I think the clips, the social media traction, the brand notoriety, I think there's so much upside to it. Next time, I'm sure they will figure out things. The team, Mansuri on down, and Tony, obviously the creative part of it. But shooting something like that is not easy. But man, oh man, I think it produces dividends for the product down the line. And I get it. You couldn't do this, and there wasn't enough people at ringside, or maybe the entrance was too long, or whatever it is. I just think there is a lot of tailwind that you can get on trying new venues. And this is one of them that I think, like you said, man, Conrad, the beach one years ago, I was on Hog Wild. Was it perfect? No. Was it different? Yes. I just think that it helps the product. I think it helps the industry. Man, we were at TNA. We were going to do one up in Fort Campbell at in an airplane hangar. And I know there's been bits and pieces of that. I think there's so many things that wrestling could try in this day and age with all the guaranteed money, that I think, I get it. TKO is probably looking at that revenue on ticket sales and don't want to give that up. But I think you could try even more different spots. It helps the product.
It was an incredible spectacle, and I really like these interesting venues. I mean, I know there's been, crazy matches in WWE history before, like the grocery store match, and I think that was actually borrowed from a tape that was traded around over in Big Japan back in the day. But the fish out of water stuff, I really dig, and a lot of people started to chime in on social and make suggestions. Nick Nemeth even suggested a big Mexican restaurant. Is there a fun venue that's still out there? I know you mentioned that you had an aspiration once upon a time for an airport hangar, but is there something else off the beaten path that you think, hey, that could be interesting? That could be cool.
Well, BS days, Connie.
Yeah.
Vegas. There's some big clubs that I think you could do. And I know they've done it at the Palms. Oh yeah, they've done that. But I do think there is some nightlife events that you could do, because they already have built-in lighting and smoke, and but then all of a sudden it's what audience are we going to get in? But nothing, crazy off the top of my head. Um, I think it goes part and parcel, hand in hand with unique concept matches that you can try. That it's not for everybody, but it's just a little something different. That if you try, it's all in the presentation because you can always go back to the four walls in the arena and hard camera. And when you do that, the fans are everything. They are what makes the show when you go the traditional route. When you bring in an element of scenic, it changes the game.
I know that we've seen, during the pandemic era, we saw some theatrical style matches. I'd love to see a match like a show with fans, and I know this is a tall ask, but wouldn't it be cool if they could find a way to do that on a rooftop? Feels like if you were wrestling on a rooftop and you had a skyline behind you at night, like that feels like that would be out of a video game. I think it's going to happen eventually, but I think that'd be a cool idea.
Don't let the giant fall off of it. Didn't he climb up on?
He came back and won the belt later that night.
Right.
So, I mean, that's how he started his career. What if that's how he finishes his career? Tony Khan, if you're listening.
And there you go. Hey,
put the giant on a roof.
There's some different photos, and Flair could probably, but down in the islands that when they used to have, big houses, Dominican, not just Puerto Rico, the different Caribbean islands. And I know they've done it on cruise ships and the Jericho cruise and all that, but there's different locations you could figure out that would make for a really fun show.
Yeah, it is. It's fun to think about wrestling in sort of a different place. One of the other things that we didn't talk about because it happened late in the week, but I do want to ask you where you think he belongs in the conversation about wrestling. And of course, I'm talking about Ted Turner.
Ooh.
But before we do, I know that's going to be a serious conversation. I want to get some fun out of the way. Guys, if your lady or your fella, whoever sending you that eggplant emoji at 2 a.m. is ready for better sex, then by God, you should be too. And that's where Blue Chew comes in. They've been on a mission for years to get you bricked up, help you build your confidence, and help you actually perform in the bedroom. Their new arousal boosting formula, Blue Chew Gold, is helping millions of men have better sex in 2026. While most ED meds only focus on blood flow, Blue Chew Gold goes further by combining 2 ingredients for blood flow with 2 ingredients for mental arousal and connection. So you're not just physically ready, you're actually in the mood. This type of innovation is why Blue Chew Gold is the #1 brand in erectile function. Getting hard is not the same thing as getting aroused. Get that solution that does both and more. Don't let your mind get in the way of a good time. Go discover your options right now at bluechew.com. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. Right now, when you buy 2 months of Blue Chew Gold, you get the third for free with the promo code MyWorld. That's promo code MyWorld. Visit bluechew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring today's podcast. So, Jeff, let's talk about him. Ted Turner, man, what a legacy this dude leaves behind. And, if you grew up like I did as, a kid in the South, you couldn't help but be a Braves fan. TBS was going to have wrestling on it. It was going to have Andy Griffith reruns. It was going to have a little Happy Days on there. But you got to get your Braves. I think every kid I know, if you lived in Tennessee, if you lived in Mississippi, if you lived in Georgia, if you lived in Alabama, you were a Braves fan. And so to lose Ted Turner and Bobby Cox in the same week, man, just a 1-2 punch for my childhood. But Ted Turner, man, what an influencer, not just in cable, not just in pro wrestling, but in so many other areas of his life. One of the more interesting individuals who've ever brushed up against the wrestling space. Did you ever meet Ted Turner?
I did not. But my dad, I always go, and I did a couple of local here in Nashville interviews. Some folks on ESPN reached out, and it gives when somebody passed away, obviously it gives us all an opportunity to go hear the bio and hear the highlights, and the different networks will pick on it. But of course, with X, you could just kind of scroll through, and man, Chipper Jones told a Bobby Cox story that was phenomenal. But when I'm not per se the bat and ball guy, although I'm affiliated with baseball teams, but but man, legendary, and went to World Series games and almost met Ted that night. But it takes me back to the story that I heard my dad tell multiple times. And look, Ted and Nitro, and you with Eric going, just that whole Ted Vince, that whole rivalry, if you will, all that. But my dad was booking the Atlanta territory, and they couldn't get into the edit room until late at night. And my dad said that's where he originally met Ted, is that there's this young guy kind of sitting in the back of the edit room and just kind of pondering, watching it. And that's how they introduced that, Dad couldn't get into the studio. And when I say edit, just kind of clean up ins and outs. But that's where they first met. And he said, Ted, enjoyed the edit and understood and really respected the business then. And so hearing my dad talk about this set point of a guy that, inherited his father's business and took it from that to where it became, man, it is such it's an incredible success story that he took his dad's billboard advertising business and really became the OG pioneer of so many industries that, the bison herd, the landowner. But it goes without saying. And when you hear about the different things that really, the TBS Superstation, but then you hear the story of the Gulf War and CNN and how that really catapulted things to a whole nother level. But I'll circle always back to how his really fortunes came upon are three things. And you mentioned them, Connie, off TBS. He understood to take a cable station national. How am I going to really create something that's special? Three things, and he gave it credit to it. Andy Griffith, the Atlanta Braves, and professional wrestling, 605 Eastern. And when you think about those three flagships, that to me, with all due respect, the first national wrestling program that really was internally, not externally, but making waves is that TBS 605 time slot that Saturdays, people were watching sports, but we got the numbers that it did, and Ted knew that. And so building an empire off of those three things, Connie, pretty damn brilliant if you ask me, and just the impact he left on the industry through the years. But I just love that he was an OG wrestling fan from the 70s. I think that's cool.
I do too. I was really excited to see AEW pay tribute to him. They had a whole segment with Sting and Tony Schiavone that I thought was terrific. And Ted Turner's passing was even acknowledged with a graphic to start SmackDown. So that's kind of a cool deal to see everybody in wrestling giving a tip of the cap to old Ted Turner. And once upon a time, I'm sure he probably still was. He was probably America's favorite billionaire. It feels like billionaire's a 4-letter word in America these days, but I don't think it was when Ted Turner was in the conversation.
Well, he's so fascinating. The sailing that he won, I'll get the America's Cup. I forget that, but when you kind of look at the diversity of where how his brain operated, he loves like the Braves are a sports team, but he's got a news empire and a TV. It's like he's the OG nowadays, the Kroenke family or the Walmart family, if you will, or all the different billionaires that own different sports teams and where they come from. But Ted was, like I said, world's largest bison herd, landowner. He's up there, media empire. When you drill it right down into the cable empire, and we all call it Warner Brothers Discovery, and that's what it is. But okay, part of Warner's, wait, he doesn't have just one Turner Broadcasting Systems. It's still called TBS, Turner Network. I mean, that's the guy. Like, I just don't think anything can really be overstated. The importance that Ted brings to the modern media picture, not just wrestling, media. Like, we're talking about these streamers and Netflix signing billion-dollar deals and all this kind of stuff. He's the guy that took a local U station and went national with it. Connie, that to me, that's so impressive. It really is.
Hey, you mentioned streaming. I can't believe this is real, but this weekend, a dream match is finally happening for women's MMA, and it's happening on Netflix. It's not a UFC event. It is a Jake Paul promoted MVP promotions card headlined by a former WWE superstar, Ronda Rousey, who was once upon a time a pay-per-view juggernaut for UFC, is going to be taking on Gina Carano. Now, longtime MMA fans would remember Gina Carano was really like the first, I guess you'd call it, pushed female in the space. And that actually predates Ronda's run, but Ronda really took it to new heights. This felt like a dream match. If there was like this is a terrible analogy, but people thought we would never get Mayweather Pacquiao. And then we did in 2015. Well, I don't think people thought they would ever see this match, but 10 years later, 15 years later, it's happening this weekend on Netflix. Are you going to watch this weekend, do you think?
I think so. I mean, obviously weekends are busy, and Conrad, we can watch so many things on our phone. Cats game. I mean, I have a busy weekend, but I know for sure I will be following it real time. You'll be one of my go-to texts if I'm not sitting in front of a TV. But Conrad, what's fascinating as the business component, or to me, I'll put on my promoter's cap, in that you just hit it, because I'm definitely not the expert, but this fight, I believe you statistically said, is 10 years late.
Maybe 15.
Okay. That is, to me, it is, I can't say it goes against the grain, but it is a real reality check on what the market wants. The market wants big names. Like, how else do you describe this? People are not going to watch this to say this is going to be a hell of a technical fight.
Well, let me remind you now, this isn't a one show fight. Junior Dos Santos is on the undercard, former big time performer for UFC. Francis Ngannou, one of the biggest names of modern UFC times, he's on this card. Nate Diaz and Mike Perry are also on the card. I mean, anytime you got a Diaz, it's going to be big bucks, and it's going to get a lot of eyeballs. So it is a big card, but the main event, and this is interesting, is a dream match of women's MMA. And famously, of course, Dana White once said, no woman will ever fight in the UFC. Well, he reversed course on that for Ronda Rousey. And then we saw Ronda have some less than ideal experiences in the cage, and she tried her hand to pro wrestling, but now she's back. It is curious to see how this will be received and what opportunities this presents, because once upon a time, this was unfathomable that you would be able to put on a super card like this. Affliction tried this 15 years ago and failed flat, but they didn't have a deal, some sort of guaranteed income for distribution. Netflix investing heavily here, and not something that's necessarily bingeable, but a live event. Yeah. That feels like that's where Netflix is spending all of their money, even if it's a dream match from 15 years ago, where, not to be disrespectful, but I'm going to sound like Charles Barkley here, they're probably not at their physical peak, but boy, both of these names are huge, held in high regard. Yes.
You just asked me. I've got arena football duties. I know I got Cody duties. I got a busy weekend. I'm going to go out of my way to be engaged with it, if not sitting in front of the TV. So let me ask you a question, Conrad. You said both of those ladies are, we're going to be kind and say 10 years past their prime. Just off the top of your head, you mentioned Diaz. How far off his prime? When was his prime physically?
I mean, probably 10 years ago. These are names that were popular in the last decade.
Dos Santos 10 years ago, 7,
probably 15.
Okay. So nobody's in their physical prime.
Well, no, that's not fair. The undercard is probably stocked with guys that are going to be the stars of the future, but they're not. Nobody's buying the show to see them yet.
So I guess what I'm saying is the buying public. Like, I can remember I
Well, here's
fully.
what's interesting too, Jeff. It's no buy. There's no buy. Either you have Netflix or you don't. I think that's such an interesting layer to this because
It's
I
content.
don't know how well this would sell on pay per view. A few years ago, they did a rematch, if you'll recall, of Tito Ortiz and Chuck Liddell, and they were Oscar De La Hoya had promoted it. And don't get me wrong, that was one of the fights that really put the UFC on the map. You go back and you look at the story of the UFC 40 Vendetta with Shamrock and Tito Ortiz going on the Best Damn Sports show to promote it. It popped a number, the biggest. It pulled Zuffa out of bankruptcy, and then they tried to ride that train. And then, Chuck Liddell comes in and Randy Couture's here and Tito's there and who's on first. That triage right there created a lot of revenue for UFC.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think Oscar De La Hoya thought to himself, hey, let's just play the hits. Everybody loves Chuck Liddell and Tito Ortiz. They know how to sell. They know how to promote. Let's go do it. And let's run a pay-per-view. And it was a flop. So now we're doing it on the female side, but it's not on pay-per-view. It's on Netflix. This is so weird, Jeff. From a business standpoint, it's like this is a proven failure on pay-per-view, but we're going to pay giant bucks for it on streaming. It feels like a huge opportunity. This feels more sports entertainment than sports. Also, too.
Kind of where I was positioning that I love it because when the graphic was up, you and I don't know what Tito would wear those, but when you say the Intuit Dome, like, Connie, to open the doors there, pal, your security bill is mid six figures. I mean, it is an expense. This is an expensive proposition that Netflix is big time waving the banner on. We want to make available spectacle live events, and I'm here for it. I love it. And you're using names, and sure, there's a strong undercard, but you failed to mention one of those yet. I'm not saying you don't know them, but I just think it's interesting to see where the industry, when I say the industry, the sports entertainment industry is going. I know we're probably going to get there, but the match that was advertised, supposed to be Jelly Roll and Pat McAfee. But just the spectacle of name brands. It's why the Cowboys are the most valuable sports franchise in the world.
To be clear, this is not a TKO promoted card, and they're still leveraging this celebrity like this. I do wonder, is pro wrestling next? Do you think there could be a standalone super pro wrestling card? Is that even possible or viable? Because if it was going to happen, it would have to happen with a major name, a John Cena, a Steve Austin, a Rock. I would think it would have to be a mega name, but I don't even know if that's really possible. Do you think a Netflix super card like this could exist strictly with pro wrestling?
Oh, I mean, putting on the promoter cap, you're not going to have, and this is a whole nother discussion, but you said you got to have a name, right? Isn't that a relative term? Period. Like subjective term. Like what defines a relative name?
I don't think that's subjective at all. Ronda Rousey,
I'm not. No, they're definitely Carano and Rousey. Huge names. All those are big names you mentioned. I'm not the MMA guy, and I'm well aware of all those folks. I'm talking about in the wrestling space. Like, what would be that short list of folks to headline? I don't know.
I mean, I think I'm not saying this is going to happen. I'm not saying it's in the cards. I'm not sure that it would even be smart for the individuals because you could probably take such an offer if you got one and leverage it and get a much better deal. As long as you don't have one of those 90-day outs that WWE has found a lot of value in lately, might work out in your favor. But I like legitimately, does a list like that exist? Like Brock Lesnar, for instance, if he really is retired, if he really is done,
he's done.
Like, Is he going to be on the next UFC? Not UFC, but on the next, because we know TKO ain't paying no money. Do you think he'll be on like a Jake Paul Promotions fight card next time?
I don't know, because it's a completely different business. The fight game and the professional wrestling business is, I think they're different animals. So if we went down the road that Brock's really retired, and he then you get into the opponent and the spectacle and what's it for? I don't know. It's good, healthy discussion. I don't know.
I bet it happens.
Okay.
I bet within 18 months of today, Brock Lesnar is on a Netflix card.
Professional wrestling.
No, MMA.
Oh,
you didn't think it would work on pro wrestling, but I'm saying if the big money is over for Brock Lesnar and TKO.
Oh, Brock and MMA on a spectacle.
Yeah, do a rematch. I mean,
yes,
there's plenty of. I'm not going to throw any names out there, but we're all thinking the same ones right now.
Yes.
And there's one guy in particular recently got rid of some bracelets. He'd probably love a payday. So I'm just saying there's lots of options, I think. But I can't help but wonder, would a pro wrestling standalone supercard of nostalgia work on a streaming service? I think it would.
Well, I'd love to dive into that and just really look at what the measurable. That's good, Conrad. Like, what would it take to quote unquote be successful? I'd be leaning back in my chair. Let's figure it out, Connie. Let's figure it out.
I'll tell you what, so-and-so's last match kind of works.
What if?
Proven.
What if?
Yeah.
What if?
Don't you think though, like if that's true, that we do, if my prediction, and I just made that up, by the way. I'm just saying, if you do survey the landscape right now and you say, okay, Paramount's income is guaranteed, said differently, it's capped. Now you're kind of working against your own talent to dig out profit. Instead of saying, let's make it as big as we can and sell as much as we can and make as much money as we can, your income is kind of capped. So as a result, we kind of got to make these numbers work. I'm saying all that to say the length of the Paramount deal pretty much guarantees that Brock Lesnar is not going back to UFC. Mm-hmm. And I would imagine that he's winding it down with WWE because they just recently moved him over to the alumni section. And he took his gloves and boots off, and maybe that was the plan. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe he was negotiating in public. That's what I thought. And maybe they said, hey, it's not in the budget. We're moving on. That's their right. But it does feel like there's another big payday out there to promote Brock Lesnar's last match.
Oh, Jesus.
And if you say this is Brock Lesnar's last match and you promote it on Netflix and you run it back against Cain Velasquez or Frank Mir or Mark Hunt again, or Randy Couture. There's a million different ways you could slice this, or for that matter, you can put them in there with some real competition who are going to be on this same card. It just feels like they'd back up the Brinks truck. I could be wrong, but it feels like a power move, just like hiring Morgan & Morgan is a power move. Morgan & Morgan is America's largest injury law firm. They've got over 100 offices nationwide. They've got more than 1,000 lawyers with over $30 billion recovered. For 500,000 clients, Morgan & Morgan has a proven track record of fighting to get you fair and full compensation. Check this out. In Florida, a client recently received $6.1 million after the insurance company's best offer was only $100,000. Up in Jeff's neck of the woods in Tennessee, a client got $10.6 million. Over in Shivani territory, a Georgia customer or client received $29.5 million. If you're injured by the negligence of another, you deserve to be paid. And if you're ever injured, you can check out Morgan & Morgan. Their fee is free unless they win. For more information, go right now to forthepeople.com/myworld or dial #law. That's #529 on your cell phone. That's forthepeople.com/myworld or #law. That's #529 on your cell phone. This is a paid advertisement. Jeff, I want to ask you a little bit about Backlash. I don't know if you had a chance to see it over the weekend, but it was interesting. I'll say that. We had 2 matches on the pre-show on ESPN2 that were totally free, and then we got 3 matches on the pay-per-view. I bring this up because As a reminder, ESPN Unlimited is $30 a month. So if you didn't have that, then you watched ESPN2, you saw 2 matches, and you got your money's worth because it was free. But if you paid the $30, you got 3 matches, one of which was Danhausen teaming with a cloned version of a bunch of Mini-Housens against Miz and Kit Wilson. And then, of course, we saw Asuka, what a lot of people believe is her finishing up or at least becoming semi-retired with WWE. A lot of farewells and tearful hugs goodbye. And then the main event, Jacob Fatu and Roman Reigns. So once upon a time, we would all plop down, $30 a month and we'd get a 3 or 4 hour pay-per-view, just a string of matches. And now we get a bunch of commercials and 3 matches. It's $10 a match. And one of them is a comedy segment with little people. It is a different WWE. But the main event is what everybody was talking about, Jacob Fatu. And you weren't so sure if you would have booked him this way. He had a fine showing. He was not victorious. Roman Reigns retains. But I think, as the boys in the biz would say, he, quote unquote, got his heat back after. And Roman cut a promo at the top of the ramp saying, hey, there was a reason you were never here, Jacob Fatu. You're not supposed to be here now. Tonight was your last night. So the storyline continues. What'd you think of what they presented Backlash in Tampa this past weekend?
I cannot wrap my head around I got a buddy, lives on Lake Gunnersville. Fine business folks. Father's a fine businessman. Mom's a fine businessman. Sister's a fine business person. Connie, consumer confidence.
Mm.
And I really do, because this is a part of the podcast that I throw my hand up first and foremost. I do not want to be the guy that I used to hear my dad snicker at, or other old timers that they talk about that generation of, oh man, he won't change with the times. I'm trying to wrap my head around, is this the new model in 2026 that you got fixed revenue, but you have still a boatload of talent? You do a 3-hour show on Friday, a 2-hour on Tuesday, a 2+ hour on Monday. It's not like they couldn't have, let's go out on a limb here, and by God, give 2 free matches and 5 or 6 or even 7 on the premium live event. To only give 3, it's a shift. It's definitely a fundamental shift in what you're feeding your consumer. In that, it brings to mind grocery store, Whole Foods, and the different things, and how many selections you give, and they sell more of this product if you narrow the selections. I don't know what the psychology is. I don't know the people in Tampa. You're buying like the live event. If I'm going to go see a live event, and it started at, I'm assuming, I don't know. So
the show was over at 8, Jeff.
Yeah, and what time was the first match go to the ring?
5. It was a 5 to 8 show.
180 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I do correctly is what 3 hours is.
That's right.
You do 5.
Yeah.
In 180.
Yes.
I'm not the best mathematician, but off the top of my head, you're looking at about 30 plus. Conrad, that's where I am just not.
Let me break it down for you. So Braun Breaker and Seth Rollins go 21 minutes. Braun gets the win. Trick Williams and Sami Zayn go just under 13 minutes. And then we start the actual pay-per-view. Danhausen and Masquerita Sagrada, who we saw as El Torito before, now is Minihausen. They wrestle Kit Williams and The Miz for 11 minutes and 38 seconds. Io Sky and Asuka went 18 minutes. They were the longest on the actual pay-per-view part of the broadcast. And Roman Reigns and Jacob Fatu went 17:50.
So in 3, what?
Yeah. So, they didn't have short matches. They had decent match lengths, but I'm just saying, I know there's been criticism about trimming the card from 10 to 5. and maybe 10 gave you too many matches and some of them were too short. I mean, we all remember those. I mean, it was criminal the way they used to do some of the women's matches. They'd have a pay-per-view match and it would be 28 seconds or something. So I'm glad that we've done better, and I'm glad that the ladies had plenty of time here. But 5 matches, only 3 that I had to pay for. One, respectfully, one's a comedy match, one's a ladies match, and one's Jacob Fatu and Roman Reigns. This felt more like a Saturday night's main event and less like a PLE to me.
But okay. But Saturday night's main event, I think those are just talking points. What I don't get is that they're not short on talent. They got plenty of talent, and like throw out, put in there an NXT rising talent match of the night. And I don't want to call it filler because you have such a depth of talent. But all right, so Conrad, I know publicly they're not stating anything, but is there any online discourse that the journalists that are having the different conversation, that have the sources, what's the psychology to give 5 matches in 3 hours? And because I know we're breaking it up free and pay, but it's all subscription, but that to me is a whole nother discussion, and analytics will be, to me, probably heavily involved in there.
Yeah, but they're not. I feel. Is this thing on? WWE is not interested in taking care of their customers. They're interested in taking care of their partners, and that's delivering shareholder value, and that's making ESPN happy. So I think first and foremost, in order to make shareholders happy, you got to make ESPN happy. So we're going to make ESPN happy. So we're going to give them that first hour for free, and we're going to just hammer it all the way through because we want people to go buy this. But what I'm saying is, when you buy ESPN Unlimited as a wrestling fan, you're like, maybe I could have just seen the clips that you're going to post immediately after.
Real time.
And save $30. I'm just saying, in this economy where we all know that there's more month at the end of the money and families you're asking a lot.
You see, yeah.
Yeah, buddy. Listen, it was funny because, we drove to St. Louis this weekend to shoot some stuff, some curtain jerkers for JBL. And I had to stop at some nondescript gas station because I was about to run out of gas. So it's not like a big name brand. It's not like it's Shell or something, right? But they wouldn't let me get more than $75 worth of gas. Well, that only got me 12 gallons because I run 93. So I got a 20-gallon tank. I had to stop again and get more gas. So yeah, I'm just saying families are feeling the pinch. And I don't know, man. That over the weekend, I was like, I don't know if this is.
So, sorry to cut you off, but here's where. See, this is, and I enjoy the shit out of this kind of conversation because, look, we're the outside looking in, but hypothetically speaking, they do not care about the wrestling fan. They only care about shareholder value and their partners. So, partner, here's what we're going to deliver. We have 50 guys, probably 20 of them that live within a drive of Tampa building, but then we won't get into that. But maybe we have 100, or count Orlando. What is the downside to ESPN delivering, instead of 3 on the premium live event, delivering 6? And those additional 3 matches, I'll call it diplomatically, you're giving guys wins to build their character.
You've got to give ESPN an opportunity to sell ads and get a return on their investment.
And do they have a window they have to be in, a 3-hour window?
No, I don't know that to be true. I don't know that for sure, but I'm sure they have to reserve satellite time.
Yeah.
But there's no way that they're not back timing it with their sponsors and commercials. I know that we're getting way in the weeds here, but a lot of our listeners really like that. Jeff, as you know, when you sell a package to a sponsor like that, you have a list of what's called deliverables.
I get it.
We're going to hit this billboard. We're going to hit that. We're going to hit this. So I think, we put that together and then we try to reverse engineer. All right. That gives the girls 18 minutes plus entrances. Like, that's how they're doing the shows now, right? It's got to be, because if you've ever built a radio show or built a television show, you have to back time it. So you have to know where you got to go, ins and outs, and somebody's got to play traffic and somebody's got to be in his ear. Don't forget the fucking Mummy commercial. We got to plug that new Mortal Kombat. We got this new jack off Skittle they got to push. So you got to do all of that stuff. And then, oh yeah, we got to put some matches on this wrestling pay-per-view. So we got 18 minutes right here. We need the girls to fill. That's what happens.
You're the best.
That's what I mean. Listen, it's a for-profit endeavor. We already got these people who bought their tickets. We already got their money, and we made sure we made them wait outside at the pop-up merch stand before they came in. And please, by all means, exit through the gift shop. So we've got all of that mapped out. So at this point, it's just about, hey, we gotta hit all of our deliverables. And if they have a cool match, that's fine. And if they don't, that's fine too. See y'all Monday.
Oh, Jarrett didn't always work out, but he's like, hope that works out for you. He's not the only one that said that, but he would often hope that works out for you, Jeff.
The big story coming out of this show was not necessarily the finish of Jacob Fatu and Roman, but you said last week you wouldn't have booked Roman and Jacob here. Did you have a chance to see the execution? And if so, what'd you think? And saying you didn't see it is not a criminal act.
I did not see it.
Okay. Let me ask you about the John Cena Invitational. Did you hear about this announcement where John Cena's big announcement that I sort of thought, respectfully, felt a little bit like a Dixie Carter? It's going to be it's going to change the future of our business. It's going to change TNA forever. I just thought, if he's announcing this fucking Club WWE thing, this thing is going to be a dud. Well, it was not. I was wrong, and I'm glad to be wrong. He created the John Cena Invitational, and they're going to crown a new champion. So a new championship was born out of this promo where he explained that there's going to be a new event, and it is not a tournament. It is the rising stars versus the existing stars. And fans vote at the end who was the champion. So even if on this hypothetical dream card that's going to be produced with some NXT talent versus some main roster talent and mixing and mingling, sort of like he did on his Saturday night's main event farewell and the undercard. That's where we got Obafemi versus Cody Rhodes and others. I thought that was fun. But fans vote on who the champion is. Said differently, this feels a little bit like Taboo Tuesday or American Idol, where they're probably going to have a way for you to vote. They're going to want you to go to a website, and then they're going to put a pixel on you that follows you around to sell you merch forever, or sign up for a newsletter, or download a new app, or get the new Club WWE thing and sign up, and then you can vote. This could become like the old school 1-900-909-9900 hotline. Like, in order to vote, it's $1.99. Call that. But I could totally see this being a cash grab in that way. But what's interesting is the winner doesn't mean, all right, you're the John Cena Invitational champion, even though you just lost. That's new, a new concept in wrestling, that the champion is not the person who won the match. It's the person who got the most votes, Jeff. On the one hand, this feels like a response to online criticism of, you're not listening to the fans. On the other hand, I wonder, is this a cash grab? And can we wrap our head around it logically that this would be the only title that you can lose and still win? What do you think?
Is there going to be an actual belt?
Well, there's got to be, because they got to sell replicas of it.
Okay.
They're going to have a John Cena Invitational belt. I mean, and that some bitch better spin if they're listening. Ben Brown, if you're listening, it better spin.
Well, I didn't know if it's but there is that's where, again, it's a funnel. I could not agree more. This is the very, to me, and again, maybe it's because I've got an emotional connection to the biggest box office attraction of this generation for the last 20 years. And how did Cena get over the right way, the hard way? He came up through Hard Knocks. He dazzled the office. He dazzled the fans. He dazzled the dressing room, had charisma, busted his ass, got in one spot and succeeded, got in another spot, succeeded. Then he got in his main event. And then he got on a run, and he outworked the whole room, and he earned his stripes, and he's given more Make-A-Wish wishes, and on and on and on and on and on. And the definition of success is when preparation meets opportunity, Cena. So now we're going to come along. And I get it. It from a business perspective, it's the funnel to get people engaged. And there's going to be an X poll. There's going to be a TikTok poll. There's going to be every social media platform. There's going to be all kinds of social custom content. And I don't know if they announced the sponsor to this, but that's probably going to be one of John's VO accounts that he has. But I get all of from that. But in the storytelling component of, yeah, you can become champion and you don't have to win your matches. And yes, the business, and that's why we may be all kind of overthinking this, and it is what it is, because the whole world knows we're scripted entertainment, but we at least want to get lost in the story and go for the title. It takes that component out, the suspension of disbelief on what matters in our world as we're watching this 2-hour episode or 3-hour episode or 3-hour premium live event. When we got to get immersed in the story, why do we care when a hip toss happens or a false finish happens or a spectacular move off the top? Why are we looking for the performance aspect? Yes. They're trying something new. When we talked about the top of the show, the Fairway to Hell and the innovations, and I'm, a third generation guy who is huge on trying something new. Don't keep doing the same stuff over and over and over. But Cena being the face of it, he's supposed to be, he never was really retired. He's actively involved. People are waiting for him any minute to get shoved around and come out of retirement. And if you ask me, it's what a wrestling fan wants. But I don't. They're going to be successful on they're creating leads, Connie, as you know as well as I do. That's what the funnel's about. They're going to create a boatload of leads.
Let me give you this context.
Okay.
They don't have it mapped out. They just announced it. John Cena said, at the very least, we'll all learn something. At the very best, we all create something. I'm ready for wherever the road takes us. Thank you, WWE, for this opportunity. More details to come as we figure all this out.
Where and when did he say that?
In the ring when he made the announcement.
Oh,
folks, we got something planned. I can't show you the graphic yet because it doesn't exist. I can't show you the championship yet because it doesn't exist. But we've got an idea, and I can't get into all the specifics now. It's going to change everything. It's a new title. Nope, you can't see it. It's a new event. Can't tell you when or where. But stay tuned. It'll be young people looking for an opportunity against existing stars. And some of these guys are going to win and some are going to lose, but it doesn't matter because even a loser can be a champion in John Cena's world. The participation trophy of wrestling belts coming soon as we figure it out. That was pretty much the pitch. Let me give you a freestyle, Jeff, where I think this is going. Hear me out.
Okay, because I had a follow-up, but go ahead.
Go ahead.
Isn't that what Raw and SmackDown is every week? Established stars versus up-and-coming stars, and every now and then we have a main event, and it's established star versus established.
You mean like Jacob Fatu versus Roman Reigns? Is that what you're talking about?
Oh, my God.
You talking about Miz teaming with Kit Wilson to take on Danhausen and Minniehausen? You talking about Braun Breaker versus Seth Rollins? Is that what you're talking about? Because those are on this card.
God, he's the best. That's like, what am I missing here, guys?
Dude, guys, we're going to do wrestling with a new belt. No, you can't see it, but it's a new event. Don't ask when or where. I have none of those details. But somebody's walking out with a new belt that you can't see. And it's not the person who won the matches. Who gives a fuck who won? You're going to vote. We're going to give them the belt. So I'm saying all that to say this, Jeff. I love the idea because here's what I think it's going to be, Jeff. I think it's proof of concept. I have felt like, and you and I have talked about this offline a lot, and I've talked about this with Eric Bischoff a lot for Real American Freestyle. What industry is changing sports and pumping money into sports faster than anything else, and it ain't close? And the answer is gambling. Now, that is one of the real problems with sports entertainment. It's scripted, so it's harder to gamble on. You can't really gamble on it. But you can gamble on how many people are going to vote. So if they do some sort of third-party voting system, now all of a sudden there can be odds. And I wonder, will this evolve to where everybody's watching WWE on Netflix or Paramount or whatever their streaming service is? But they've got the WWE app, and then they're going to be voting in real time. And maybe they have to buy credits. Hey, 200 votes for Cody Rhodes only cost $2. Those in-app purchases that have made so many people billionaires from the gamification of it all. That's the last missing piece where I can vote and I get some sort of little badge by my name on the app saying that I'm a premier such and such or so-and-so. They're going to hold their phone up and they're going to press that little button on the side twice. Bam. I got my vote in for Cody Rhodes. I'm all good to go. I'm pulling for him. I'm hanging on to the match. And now we can bet all around it. Because I think you would even be able to, there will be a day in the future where I think wrestling, the finishes will be determined during the match based on audience participation. Let's give them what they want. And then it'll come through the IFB, and they've probably already worked out, hey, if Cody wins, it goes this way. If Randy wins, it goes this way. If it's a DQ, it goes this way. And once we get all the data in with a little help from our AI sponsor, because that's going to be the next piece of a major WWE sponsorship. We wouldn't just magically be throwing that out at town halls that, oh yeah, we've been using AI. They stopped short of saying the brand so they can now shop for an AI sponsor. And now they'll reverse engineer it. Well, our pals over at Claude, that'll be the way it's done. And it'll be powering whatever this WWE club engine is. It'll determine the finishes. So it won't make a shit what story you were trying to tell, Mr. Booker Man. We're going to let the fans pay us, and whatever they pay the most for, we're going to give them that. So then we can't say we're not listening to our audience. You paid us with your dumb ass, and we took your money and we gave you what you wanted, and we'll do it again on Monday. Just get your app out and watch it in real time and click that side button. That's where it's going. That's what I think. What say you?
Talk to me next week on this. Let me process all that, because Call It in the Ring has a whole new meaning to it, Connie.
I'm not saying that that's the next step immediately.
No, I hear you.
But I'm saying if you're trying to deliver shareholder value, if you're trying to do focus groups, does it get better than real-time feedback? If all of a sudden all the votes are coming in, this is the audience telling you what they want. Not just assholes who are spamming, but people who are voting with their wallet.
Wow.
I mean, make no mistake, Danhausen was on the pay-per-view part of this show and not the free show because they felt like Danhausen was going to add buys.
No doubt.
So I'm just saying, like, if we know that's the direction it's going, hey, we're going to listen to the audience and super serve them and give them what they want. That's where I think this will head. The idea that we're going to give a championship to a guy who didn't necessarily win, that's telling us, hey, what's proof of concept, we're trying it out. But we will eventually vote for winners and losers. And I don't mean for free. I mean, like, they're going to gamify it and you're going to pay. Hey, I spent $100 so Cody would win. People will do that, and then they'll find a way to bet on it. That's got to be the next. If you're trying to figure out what's a new, creative, innovative way to make money in wrestling, well, we put sponsors on the tables, Jeff.
Oh.
Like, we got sponsors on each individual turnbuckle. We're letting fans get their name printed on the actual canvas to the ring. In-app purchases is like not a revolutionary idea.
No. I mean, we've had in those other conversations on business, the in-app purchases, and look, in the arena of football, the conversations that swirl around gambling and sports, just kind of what you said, those numbers, there's a reason the NFL is the most profitable league in the world.
Micro betting is a big part of it. Like, over the weekend, I was hanging out with Cassio Kidd. He's all on that Prize Picks. We didn't sit in front of a TV that had sports on without him pulling up his app and saying, what do you think? This or that? Wrestling doesn't have that right now, and it's the next frontier.
There you go.
Like, it's coming. And it's just the evolution of the WWE's business. But a lot of our businesses are trying to grow and evolve. I know mine is on the mortgage company. We recently made the switch to Quo. If you run a small team right now, you're probably thinking about, hey, how do I get a spring reset? How do we get hot for these summer months? If you've been putting off cleaning up the messier parts of your business, now's that time. And streamlining your communication is one of the quickest and easiest upgrades you can make. That's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo. It's spelled Quo. This is a smarter way to run your business communications. Quo is, in fact, the #1 rated business phone system on G2. They've got over 3,000 reviews, and this is built for how modern teams work. And I'll admit, once upon a time, I would not have been a customer for Quo. That was then, old school. We had a closet at the office dedicated to our phone system. We had to like schedule something with a guy who charged a damn arm and a leg. Boy, Quo has shortened it all. And now it's why more than 90,000 businesses, mine included, from solo operators to growing teams, all rely on Quo to stay connected, to stay professional, and stay consistently reachable. And here's what's great about this. Quo works wherever you are, right from an app on your phone or your computer. This is like right out of the future, guys. Unless you keep your existing number, that was a concern for me. I don't want to lose this number. I kept it with Quo. I can even add new numbers or teammates in minutes. I can sync with my CRM. Seriously, it's got webhooks. If you're in the game, you know what I'm talking about. You'll be able to rely on seamless routing and call flows as your business scales. Your entire team can handle calls and texts from one shared number. Now, what's that mean for you? It means no more missed messages, no more disconnected conversation. Everyone sees the full thread, making replies faster, and customers feel genuinely cared for. Quo isn't just a phone system, it's a smart system. Quo's AI automatically logs calls, generates summaries, and highlights next steps so nothing gets lost. It can even qualify leads or respond after hours, ensuring your business stays responsive when you're finally offline. It's easy. Your calls, your texts, your voicemails, your transcripts, all your contact details are all live in one clean view. With full context at your fingertips, your team will communicate faster, stay aligned, and deliver a more personal experience. Make this the season where no opportunity and no customer slips away. Go right now. Try Quo for free. Plus, get 20% off your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/myworld. That's QUO.com/myworld. Quo, no missed calls, no missed opportunities. QUO.com/myworld. Jeff, let's talk a little bit about this streaming crackdown. I don't know if you saw this, but over the weekend, WWE started to go after, well, they used a third party. Stream Entertainment, Stream Enforcement is the name of the brand. And they're after anybody who does WWE review shows. And you've probably seen this on social media. They'll show a highlight or a clip from a Raw or a SmackDown or a PLE or an NXT or whatever, and they'll respond to it, react to it. Here's what happened, blah, blah, blah. Well, Stream Enforcement is after these folks, and all these streamer clips are done. Now, there's two ways of looking at this. Some of the community, the largest portion, would say, hey, this is a value add for everybody. Like, why wouldn't the company want all these people having all these conversations about your product or service that's going to drive eyeballs to it? Well, of course, WWE monetizes their social, and they're trying to have some deliverables for some of their sponsors. So they want to make sure that those selling messages are in there. So if there is a clip that's posted and it's brought to you by Papa John's, blah, 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 then they want that in there. But this feels like an about face. We've seen this once before over in Japan. Historically, New Japan's television partner, they were pretty strict on posting clips. This is the first time we've seen this for WWE. Is this a net positive? Is it a net negative? Are they missing the big picture? What do you think of this news, Jeff?
You know, it doesn't surprise me because technology, I think at the end of the day, it's a net positive because controlling the content, the IP is the value of the company. And what you said in that, keeping Conrad, I'm hanging on to as you were talking about Quo, and that stuff is amazing. I kept going back to our conversation just then about the betting and the gambling and the gamification, and then two things they got to keep happy: shareholder value and their partners. Okay, to keep their partners happy, Bojangles or whatever, State Farm or whatever brand, if they cannot control the segment, it goes down to that. It's not like, hey, we don't want you to talk good or bad about us. It's about monetizing their content. They're going to figure a way on the licensing, Getty Images. And Conrad, I love the name of their naming of the company is called Stream Enforcement. That's, boy, talk about getting the title of the name of what you do involved. I think it's a net positive. Both sides are going to figure out how to move through this, because at the end of the day, these tune-in shows or these journalist shows, the content they make, they're making money off of it. So they're not doing it for free. So I don't see them paying. It's kind of like the news, and I can see both sides of it, but how do they figure out how to license content out to these shows that want to turn around and make money off of it? Isn't that where it's eventually going? I don't know if that made sense or not, but I just think that, you know, servicing the news sites that want to create shows like this, that's the next step, maybe.
I think we're battling a fight on two fronts here, and I think we've got to decide sort of where the line is.
Okay.
I have known that this existed for pay-per-views for a while. Like if AEW is having a pay-per-view, then they'll upload a file to several different streaming services through a third party like this to see if there are any other active streams that are pirating the show, and then go shut those down. Now, this really became an issue way back when with UFC, and I think they were first on it, and now everybody sort of followed suit. And if you do have an event that you've went to a great expense to market as a premium live event, it's a pay-per-view, and people are pirating it, I do think that should be shut down. That's not cool. That's not fair, especially when a lot of the boys get paid back in the day based on pay-per-view revenue. So if you were a UFC fighter and you were in the main event, you're going to have some sort of a six-figure guarantee, I'm sure. But if you get to a certain level, then you participate in pay-per-views, and the more you sell, the more you make. These guys are putting their body and their physical health and their future on the line. So I was all for, hey, let's enforce those streams. That guy, you're taking money out of that guy's pocket, and he's the one getting punched in the head. Right. So I appreciate that. I do sort of struggle with, we're doing it to free TV. Like, that feels like that's just marketing. And I know that a lot of people say, oh, TV's not free, but you know, there's so many, like some of these shows are on USA Network, and like that could just be playing at the ER on TV. It just doesn't feel that way to me, but I'm sure there is a business reason. But again, I think this goes to what we were talking about before. This isn't looking out for fans as much as it is looking out for sponsors and shareholders, I feel like.
No, that's to me. So you take a 2-hour SmackDown, run it through I'll call it, create the melt, the highlight that happened in those 2 hours. You put it up, you pay a subscription, and we'll give you these 10 highlights per, 7 highlights or 6 highlights per 1 hour of content, and you pay for that, and then you go create your own show. To me, that is kind of where they're headed, that if you want to use a WWE produced content, which that's what they're producing, that's fine, but pay a service. And, I don't think you need to get outrageous, but some way, a highlight of each hour of content is produced, and you clip it up and sell the clips. A subscription, like a news service. I think there's a happy medium right there.
Let's talk about some news that just hit since we've been recording this morning. There's a report from Fightful that says the idea of WrestleMania coming to Ireland is being considered a long-term project, and one that can be achieved if the Irish government view Ireland as a global sporting hub. I'll admit, I did not have this on my bingo card, but I'm kind of excited about the idea. What do you make of the possibility of a future WrestleMania in Ireland?
Crazy great fans, super great fans. The Notre Dame game, and I guess they've done it there a few years. I think Pat McAfee had one too many in an Irish pub, and he came on in the morning, which was their afternoon. But a WrestleMania in Ireland, well, I think London gets it first. And God almighty, what a big check Ireland would write to get that. I mean,
is London going to write a check? Do you think London will write a check?
I do.
Okay.
I do. That's why I think a real big one. And here's the deal that, I think you could do with the way geographical, and I've always thought this, that if you basically did Mania at Tottenham or, one of the big stadiums, and you did a Friday night SmackDown in Glasgow and a Monday night Raw, now you got in Manchester, and you have NXT maybe over in Wales, and you could probably do, I don't know, but I think you could bring WrestleMania. London would get the lead of it, but I think it would be, WrestleMania week in the UK, and you could probably get site fees from individual cities, a country as a whole. It would be obviously the center of the industry for 7 days minimum. I think that's where it's headed eventually. I think with all the relationships TKO has through UFC and WWE and the live event space, I've always thought that's what they're working on. How do they bring it all in a massive, maybe longer than 7 days, maybe a 2-week run? Because when you bring it there, then you're really taking in Germany, France, Italy, Portugal, in so many ways, because you're talking about like going from Carolinas to Texas. Not even that. It's a short little 30-minute flight from all those countries. So that's why I just think London's going to get the big one. But man, oh man, it's going to be a European, certainly a United Kingdom mania.
Let's talk about WrestleMania. This was a headline this past week about Mark Shapiro. Quote, we fielded some investor questions about WWE demand and the state of creative driven by online commentary and the year-over-year WrestleMania ticket sale performance. We are not concerned about the ticket performance whatsoever. It was unrealistic to expect a 2-year growth in Las Vegas. Even with that, WrestleMania 42 was still one of the highest gates in WWE history and easily outperformed anywhere else we could have staged it. As it relates to the creative, there will always be periodic fan dissatisfaction around creative execution, commercial load, and celebrity usage. We listen to all feedback. We do turn a deaf ear, but these are not new criticisms. This is where you talk, Jeff.
Why should I talk now?
Well, I read you a statement and thought you might have an opinion on it. You made a face, but you can't hear your expression on the audio side.
Well, but all my folks at YouTube know exactly where I'm going with it. We don't, and I'm not joking. Did he say we don't turn a deaf ear?
He says we do it, turn a deaf ear, but these are not new criticisms. Maybe he means we do not turn a deaf ear, but these are not new criticisms. But I read it like we do turn a deaf ear. Either way, he says,
yeah,
hugely successful. What else is he supposed to say? Lots of speculation. We know where WrestleMania is going next year. Lots of speculation that your hometown of Nashville has put in a $3.5 million bid. So probably some other tax abatements as well.
Sure. But
my prediction was a 2-nighter, 1 international, 1 domestic.
Yeah. So let me ask you, did they ever report ticket sales year over year?
No.
Do we have a guesstimation from Brandon Thurston? Those guys are, they're so good at what they do. Like, and I'm just curious because
I'm sure that's out there. I don't have it.
And here, Conrad, here's where I'm going with it. So let's say it's a couple of $1 million. He just said, "Oh, we're not worried about it." Wait, you're not worried about losing a couple of $1 million?
Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods were.
That's where I'm going, but I'm also going to the graveyard of promoters. And I'm not saying TKO's headed to the graveyard. I'm not saying that, but the business is unique, and there is, man, oh man, Conrad, if you could ever get a podcast with VKM, hey Vince, what's your thoughts on this statement? What's your thoughts on this statement? What's your thoughts on this statement? And I get it. Times have changed. It's a different deal. And those guys are making so much money. They don't give a shit about anything that me and you are talking about. Because, those, just the increases that Ari and Shapiro and Nick, and they're living in a different stratosphere. They're not worried about the common man, if you will, or the common wrestling fan. They're just not. But I don't think they've also ever lived through the ebbs and flows that this industry that will absolutely bust you in the face. It just happened over and over and over. Go back and look at history, and none of those guys have experienced that. I think Nick, he was an usher at WrestleMania what, 9. The world was not setting on fire 7, 8, and 9. So at live events, but they don't care about live events.
Well, let me give you what they do care about, Jeff. Year to date, their stock's down 11%.
Whoa, Connie is dropping
10.92% to be factual, but I rounded up. I can do that in Gunnersville.
That's real money, pal. So
11%. And to your point earlier, there's about 10,000 fewer tickets year over year for WrestleMania. If you look just at WWE's own announcement, they announced in last year, 2025, 60,151 and 61,389. This year, it was 50,081 and 52,011. So
that's 20,000 tickets.
Yes.
Announced.
Yes.
And we both know that we'll call it, quote unquote, our insider folks. It was more than that. That being said, going back to the same market, all that, but that's your, and again, I always I want to almost punch myself in the face, say, man, that sounds old school. That sounds dated, all this. But when your biggest show of the year is down 20,000 tickets to the world, which is probably down 35,000 tickets. Okay. At $100 a ticket, Conrad, is that not right? Something along those lines, $3 or $4 million. Okay. So all that being said, down. And are they doing any exit surveys? Like that kind of stuff, that the data, because they're into data. What is in sight? And this is where Conrad, and me and you, I wanted to ask you this too, that you hear different folks, but as a promoter, you always go, all right, where am I building to? Who is, and it was said forever, who's the next Hogan? Oh my God almighty, we never thought Stone Cold Steve Austin. Wait, The Rock? Oh my God, we're printing money with DX and Mick Foley, then the NWO and this and that. Like, who's the next? Who's Cena? Wait, we got a white rapper who's just killing it. Yeah. Oh my God, you see his merch? This. You just kind of look at the ebbs and flows of the business. So who is that next breakout star? And look, I think OB is their guy right now that they're really banking on. But what they bought it at, and you just said the stock is down 10, 11%. And
not over the course of the last year, just this year to date. I mean, last year.
But they were way up. I'm getting it. So it's a market correction. But what's going to pull the nose up in the next 6 months?
Here's what's not lost on me. Last year was a record year. So even if you look at this year's down numbers,
they're still
with all the positive from last year, it's still up like 15%.
Yeah.
This year to date, we're down 11%. What's missing? John Cena Invitational. You're going to see him. He wasn't just the host at WrestleMania. He was at Backlash. I don't know where the shit the next pay-per-view is. I bet John Cena's there. It feels like they're just thinking, hey, John Cena is eyeballs, but John Cena in a pinstripe suit ain't John Cena in a t-shirt.
Hell no.
Yes.
Until Cena comes back in the jorts and kicks and makes Gunther tap, I mean, to me, that's just silly. Hey, I want Michael Jordan. I want him sitting courtside the NBA finals. Cause that's, our ratings are down. Let's bring back the guy who created the biggest ratings bonanza in NBA history. Let's have him on play-by-play. That'll lift a number. What?
Hey, we're running short on time. I do want to acknowledge we got a great question from a wrestling historian. We're gonna hit you with that at the end of the show. But as we start to wind things down, did you see the news that I believe the greatest value in all of wrestling? There was a contract renewal that happened last week, And of course, we got some sad news. No more Kofi Kingston, no more Xavier Woods, no more handful of others. We all got our fingers crossed for those. But there was one contract renewal that I think may be low key the most undervalued contract in wrestling history. Nick Khan has signed on to remain with the company through 2023 and as their president. 33. His base is $2 million a year through the end of this year. And then next year through the end of that 2030 contract is a $3 million deal annually. That's $250,000 a month. But when you really take a look at what the long-term value of that contract is going to be for WWE, and I know he's going to have bonuses and stock incentives and all of that, but you can't talk about the multi-billion-dollar success of WWE in recent years and not heap a ton of credit on Nick Khan. Having a base of $2 or $3 million, hey, it'll keep the lights on. But goodness gracious, this has got to be one of the best deals around for TKO, don't you think?
You're just saying that his base is a little low?
I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying I know that they probably gave him a performance contract.
Yeah.
And I know that Nick Khan knows how to negotiate. So he's not going to meet those expectations. He's going to exceed them.
Yes.
I'm sure he's got kickers on kickers on kickers.
Yes.
And he's able to frame it in a way where if we hit X plateau, I get X plus plus. I get all that. But I'm just saying on paper.
Yeah.
The idea that Nick Khan's going to come help run your outfit and it's only going to cost you $250,000 a month, given the track record.
Shit.
That's got to be like the best ROI of any wrestling contract I've ever seen
in history
of all time.
Yes.
Now I know the performance will get there and it'll wind up being a shit ton more.
And
if you want to use a wrestling parlance, his downside guarantee, Lord have mercy, what a value.
Hey, what about what do you think his a boxing deal is? There you go.
There's some details in there. It's all in the fine print. Go take a look.
Good for him.
Jeff, I have to admit, I endeavored for us to actually talk about AI and wrestling, and I blew it because we are out of time. So we're going to talk about it next week, and I've got an idea.
Okay.
I'm absolutely loving Darby Allin's title run right now. And as folks are listening to this, tomorrow night, he's going to be taking on Takeshita. Originally it was Okada. There's been some sort of Okada family business that needs to be attended to in Japan. So Don Callis has signed up Takeshita, who you and I both think a lot of.
Boy.
And he's going nose to nose with the AEW World Champion this Wednesday. Tomorrow night, it's Darby Allin versus Takeshita. But there's some stakes involved. There's a conversation last week with MJF. He may be putting his hair on the line. That feels very Memphis. I thought, why don't we dump this into AI and let's have it build us a little card and a story with Darby Allin as AEW champion. So we're going to do that thought exercise next week here with Double J.
Okay.
Make plans to join us. It'll be a very different than edition of My World with Jeff Jarrett, because Jeff, if nothing else, he's taught us one phrase and we all use it in our wrestling fandom all the time now. I carry it with me and I'll never forget it. Creative is subjective. We want to know what you think about the use of AI in wrestling storylines, and we'll talk about it, the good, the bad, and the ugly next week with a hypothetical exercise. We're not advocating for it or against it. We're just saying, hey, it's the way of the world and people are talking about it. Can it do wrestling? We'll find out next week. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications bell. And don't forget this weekend, Vice Game of the Week. It's happening this Saturday. It's an early start for you. NashvilleCats.com is where you can get your tickets or just watch on Vice this Saturday evening and see Jeff's team on TV. I can't believe that's a real thing. Jeff, we did get a live question from Instagram, a wrestling historian. He brought us back to the very first topic we talked about today, of course, was your first singles title win. He wants to know, what's your fondest memory of the Mid-South Coliseum, Jeff? This was a real mecca, a place that everybody who grew up watching Memphis, this is your Madison Square Garden. The son of Sid Udy, Gunner, he's now made an official bid to try to gain possession and ownership of the property. That feels like a very ambitious idea. I hope he's successful with it, but it's one of the more iconic buildings And I'm curious, this is a great question from Instagram a wrestling historian. What's your favorite Mid-South Coliseum story, Jeff?
Gosh, that is a really good question. Me and Lawler went an hour. Me and Lawler Moondogs. I'm just rattling off some really fun ones. My first match, most nervous. Oh God Almighty, Tony Falk. Me and Owen, me versus Shawn Michaels. That's right up there at the top because getting to work with a guy like Shawn, that is certainly up there at the top. Conrad, as a fan, and I know I've mentioned this, the story was perfect. I was at Memphis, Memphis TV, and how that all went down. But Flair against Coco Beware in a world title match, I got to tip my cap to both those guys. Flair made the whole building believe that Coco was going to beat him. There's so many Kurt Hennig, Nick Bockwinkel matches, Lawler winning the title. God, I could go on and on and on. But if I had to pick one, it's probably going to be my series of singles against Lawler. When he told me, because I was wearing the outfit that you didn't like, but he said, Jeff, anyway, we're doing it anyway. And he pulls the strap down and he said, Jeff, I want you to end up pulling yours down too. And him, strap for strap, and the people reacted great. That was a very cool moment for little 10-year-old Jeff that I used to stand up out of my chair when Lawler pulled the strap down. That may be the single. If I'm going one single memory, Lawler calling that spot for me in the ring.
If you had to guess, what year do you think that was that you're talking about?
That's 90.
Because you did a lot of tags with him, right?
Oh God, that's what I'm saying. But that would have been 93. No, left. But then when we walked out, I went back and worked, but I don't think it was 95 into 95. I want to say 90. Shit, it might have been 95. Could have been 95. End of 95. 93 or 95.
Oh, you know what? You're not going to believe it. I found them. This is real. May 15th, 1996.
Okay.
60 minutes. You and Jerry Lawler. April 17th. So 2 days later in Tunica. And then 9 days later in Troy, Tennessee. Okay. So I would imagine it's probably April 15th, 1996 is the match you're thinking about. A time limit draw, you and Lawler at the Mid-South Coliseum.
Wow. It
could be, perhaps you're talking about December 20th, 1993. November 22nd, 1993. Yeah, it's got to be 93 or 96.
Okay, so the end of 93, I started, that's when I was finishing up.
Right.
I'm on the road. I feel like it was the end of 93 because Lawler.
And you were supposed to leave, and I think maybe people knew it. And as a swerve, you beat Lawler for the title, and then you dropped it back to him.
One of those deals. Yeah. It was. Well, and it also, I was at that stage of my career that, man, here I go. But there was so much, again, emotional connection that I personally had to the Coliseum. I knew I was leaving there 7 years every Monday night. Lawler, he was happy for me. I just filled in for him on some shows, when I worked that loop with Brett, and him calling that spot was freaking really cool for me.
It was super cool. By the way, that match you were referencing with Ric Flair and Coco Beware, if there's any Eagle Eye fans out there, you can go find it on November 18th, 1985, Mid-South Coliseum. It was the main event for the world's heavyweight title. Coco went 23 minutes and 14 seconds with Ric Flair. The undercard had the Russians and the Rock and Roll Express. How about Dusty, Lawler, and Magnum taking on the Minnesota Wrecking Crew and Tully Blanchard on the other side? What about the Fabs versus the Midnight Express? The Fantastics versus Pat Rose and Dr. Tom, Jimmy Valiant and Tony Falk, Bill Dundee and Phil Hickerson, Rip Morgan in action with Billy Travis and Tojo Yamamoto, a fucking loaded card. November 18th, 1985, Coco and Ric Flair.
Wow.
Well, this was fun. I love it. We get to get on here and chop it up and talk about wrestling history from the 80s to the 90s to the 2000s to now, and even make some predictions in the future. Make plans to join us next week. I'm looking forward to this exercise. The idea that we're actually going to use AI and creative. It's going to be like you're a part of the booking room with Double J. Join us here next week.
Peace.